The Arizona Cardinals have a choose-your-own-adventure future starting in 2024. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. So this is the fun season. This is where possibilities are endless. This is where we find out and get answers to so many questions that just have question marks as placeholders right now. What is free agency going to look like? Who are they going to target in free agency? Who are they going to target in the draft? What does it mean? Are there going to be extensions for players they already have? Are they going to get rid of 80% of the players on the roster? That's just off the cuff. Are they going to bring any former Arizona Cardinals veterans back? I'm going to do that in the last segment. That was a fan DM or fan, somebody who listens to the podcast. I think it's presumptuous to think that this person is a fan of mine, but there are a couple names that could be had. I did some recon into one, not looking so great. The other one, I think would really, to quote Big Lebowski, really tied the room together. It would really tie this roster together if they were to bring this one player back. And this is silly season. There's so many storylines, so many reports, so many little things from people with 200 followers on Twitter and 1 million followers on Twitter. We have no idea what's really going on. But this is the time to just kind of gather all this stuff and discuss it. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to do one segment on this is one option for team construction. In the second segment, I'll do this is what another option could be. Because we very well know with the Cardinals, they need everything except for quarterback, right tackle, which may be a need if they move Paris Johnson Jr. to left tackle, probably center. Jaldi Frold has played well. He's got another year on his deal. Will Hernandez, right guard, has played well. James Conner, obviously. So you don't really need right tackle, center, right guard, running back, quarterback, safety. They do need another off-ball linebacker, even though Kazir White played well last year when he was healthy. But everything else they need. Pass rush, wide receiver, cornerback, linebackers. They need everything. So there's a couple different ways that Monti Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon can do this. And the fascinating part's going to be, obviously, what they do in free agency first. Because this is – before that, I do need to take a minute. I wasn't going to talk about this, but I'm going to. Last night on Twitter, I posted a trade scenario for the Cardinals. And either people loved it or absolutely called me not so nice names, which is fine. But this is a brain exercise from here to free agency, and then another massive brain exercise from the free agency to the draft when you have more texture on what the roster is going to look like with the free agents that they sign and the players they let go. Is what is the best case scenario for the Cardinals? And I just offered this up. Okay, so say they don't want to draft, or you know that I don't edit these podcasts. I don't. I mean, I can. I do edit them, but like if I'm having conversations, I say something, don't be like, that was dumb. Let's pivot. This is what I meant. Let's pivot. This is what I meant. The tweet read, my new favorite scenario would be the Chargers call the Cardinals. Chargers are picking 5th. The Chargers call the Cardinals. They're like, hey, we'll give you a future first to move up one spot. And I know that usually one spot up doesn't garner a first-round pick in the future. I know that, okay? This is an exercise. If Because, listen, Keenan Allen's getting old. Mike Williams is never healthy. Quentin Johnson can't catch the ball. And they have Justin Herbert, and they're going to have a new head coach. So if they want Marvin Harrison Jr., and they know the Cardinals are going to take him at 4, and they offer a future first for the Cardinals to move back one spot, you got to take it, in my opinion. And then you draft your left tackle or left tackle or edge rusher if they want to move. If they want to move Paris Johnson to the left, you can draft a right tackle in the 20s. And then you get a future first. That's how you build perpetual growth with an organization. Now, again, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I know the Chargers probably won't offer a first, but if a team knows that the team right ahead of them is going to take the guy they want, give them an offer they can't refuse. And that would be an offer the Cardinals wouldn't be able to refuse, in my opinion. Is it going to happen? Most likely not. But I think these exercises are fun to discuss. Now, option 1, let's pivot to the Cardinals actually drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. Okay. What does that mean beforehand? So say they're targeting him. If he's there, they're going to take him. If not, they trade back or whatever it is. It's either Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4 or a trade back. What does that mean for free agency? What are they going to target? There are reports out that they're going to go after veteran offensive linemen and corners in free agency. There's multiple reports. Okay. I understand the corner part. 100%. So say it's Marvin Harrison Jr. or trade back. That's option 1. Then in free agency, offensive line, corner, pass rush. I think corner still is the most important if you're going to go after veteran free agents, because there's a lot of times where veterans who are cap casualties may come in on a 1 or 2 year deal, especially if they're older, if they're over 30, 29, 30, 31, something like that. Corners can play. Corners can play for a while unless they have injury concerns. But getting veteran talent, set and forget veteran talent in the cornerback room is massive. And then if you still want to draft Kool-Aid McKinstry, if he's there in the mid-20s, wherever Houston's pick is, even better. You've got a mentor for your young corner. You've got a mentor for Garrett Williams. That's how you build talent. So corner would definitely need to be something that they would go after. And pass rush is going to be massively important regardless of which option this is. But I'm doing this as an exercise to kind of show what the path would be from now through the end of the draft. The offensive lineman part is what irks me a little bit. And this is why Marvin Harrison Jr. would be great. And if they draft him, I'm not going to be like, oh, season's over. No, that's never what this has been about. This is not me being, counter programming, anything like that, saying anything that other people don't say. That's not what this is. What fears me the most, which is what we've seen many teams go through, and every day, as you know this, I've talked about this for the last couple of weeks on and off, is if you sign big name offensive linemen to big money, the return on that money a lot of times isn't great. I call it the Nate Solder effect. It's not great. Trey Turner got a lot of money. Didn't really pan out. He was interior, but still. Like very few times do you get a Laramie Tunsil or a Trent Williams where it just works out swimmingly for everybody. The team who received that player. So that's why I've been so gung-ho on your left tackle for the future. Maybe keep Paris Johnson Jr. right. You bring Joe Alt in. You bring Olu Fashanu in. And you've got your bookends for the next decade, if not longer. Set and forget. A very good offensive line makes wide receivers look better because it gives the quarterback more time, gives the wide receivers more time to be elusive. And it's very hard to play corner in this league for more than a couple seconds on a given play. So option 1, Marvin Harrison Jr. or trade back in the draft. If that's what they have on their draft board, it's number 1. Corner, veteran corners, pass rush. And then an offensive lineman, if you can get a guy like Ajalti Frolt, like a diamond in the rough, the dude signed a 2-year, $4 million deal. He was great last year. You can bring in a left guard on a team-friendly deal, maybe a prove-it deal, team-friendly deal, 2-year, 15, 18 mil, 10 mil, 12 mil guaranteed, something like that. That's a different scenario. But I'm talking about bringing in the best left guard on the market for $40 million guaranteed. It's not how you build a team for sustainability, man. It's just not. What's option 2? What is option 2? This is a fun one. This is more for me, but this is a fun one, and we'll discuss it next. We'll roll on here. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. And, I've used the Game Time app a lot, actually. Super easy. You download the app, and you search for tickets, comedy, basketball, hockey, baseball, when baseball's right around the corner, football, whatever it is, concerts. It makes it so easy to maneuver around. You don't have to go to like websites and things like that. It's just boom, right there, app. And the coolest part about it is, so say you search for, I don't know, Bill Burr, I think, is coming to Phoenix soon. So it's like, okay, so search Bill Burr, great. And you go in and you're like, well, what are these seats? Like, I don't know what these seats are. I see the price. Yeah, that works. There's a flash sale on it. Maybe it's a little bit cheaper than normal for the next hour. What does it look like? You click on the actual tickets and it shows you a vantage point of what you're going to be seeing when you sit in those seats if you buy those seats. It's an absolute game changer. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Alex Clancy here. Please go to the YouTube channel. Search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit the subscribe button. Everydayers, love you. All of you. If this is your first time listening to Locked On Cardinals, thank you. I'm about 5 subscribers away from 3,000 on YouTube. If you'd like and you haven't subscribed yet, I would love it. Turn notifications on so you can see my big dumb face. Talk Cardinals. The fun has just begun, man. The fun has just begun. Locked On has launched its first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. We're ramping up, baby. We are ramping up. I know I said that I got a lot of pushback on the trade proposal, like the one that I discussed on Twitter about the Cardinals trading back for a first-round pick. This is the time, like, you'll never hear me say, oh, go follow me on Twitter. Like, it's going to be great. Go do that. I don't do it for that. Okay, but if you're on Twitter, this is where I really want to start engaging more and more and more. I love the engagement already. Good, bad, and different. I love the engagement. This is your podcast. I'm just a kind of mouthpiece of it. So please, at Clancy's Corner, even if you don't follow me, I don't care. Just go through my tweets, leave some comments, ask some questions. Like, this is where I want to continue to build and grow this community bigger than it already is even. And this is the fun stuff, because this is the hypothetical time. The 2023 season hasn't even ended. Oh, by the way, NFL, I know, Roger Goodell, you're listening. I haven't given a disclaimer like this in a while. Please start to hyphenate the league year to 24-25, because there's still football being played in 2024. If you ask me who won the 2023 Super Bowl, it's going to be whoever wins it this year, or it's going to be who won it last year, because it was the 2022 season, but the Super Bowl was in 2023. You're going to say who won the 2024 Super Bowl just because it happened in 2024? It's ridiculous. Hyphenate it. It goes from between 2 years. Hyphenate the damn league year. Thank you. Option number 2 for team construction for the Cardinals. That's what you call a seamless transition for two things that aren't correlated. If the Cardinals are looking to trade back, or if they're looking to draft an offensive lineman. Now, while this is much less realistic, that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be discussed. It's not like I'm doing a segment where they're like, oh, the Cardinals maybe draft a quarterback at 4. No. The most dire of needs the Arizona Cardinals have, in order, the most dire, like the ones that are directly correlated to sustained roster construction and winning. Offensive line. That left side of the offensive line is atrocious. It's not TJ Humphrey's fault, just getting older. And he tore his ACL, which is terrible. Elijah Wilkerson hasn't been great. Pass rush, corner, wide receiver. No. Offensive line, pass rush, corner, interior defensive line, wide receiver. And I know, you look at the wide receiver room, it's not great. That shows how dire the other four are. And I understand it's best player available. That's what you do at the top of the draft, and that's what Steve Keim didn't do, whatever it is. Steve Keim, he thought Isaiah Simmons was the best player available, so he took him. If he wanted to take need, he would have taken an offensive lineman. So this convolution of what Steve Keim did in the draft, it kind of boggles my mind a little bit. So anyways, option number 2, they decide to draft an offensive lineman or trade back. If they think they hear like, oh, Marvin Harrison Jr. is going number 1 overall, or Marvin Harrison Jr. is going number 3 overall. Like, okay, well, you need to pivot. Offensive line trade back. What does that mean for the rest? What does that mean for free agency? Got to look at wide receiver. You got to look at offensive line, veteran corner, pass rush. With the depth at wide receiver, if Marvin Harrison Jr. goes before the Cardinals at 4, there will be a viable wide receiver there in the 20s. There are like 5 or 6 guys. And Rome Odunze is not going to be there. Troy Franklin probably will. Keon Coleman from Florida State probably will. He's kind of a forgotten guy because their quarterback got hurt midway through the season or later on in the season. He's an absolute beast. So when you look at the Cardinals not drafting at 4, Marvin Harrison Jr., there are still paths to building out a sustained roster, and I think it would be a better one. Now, again, if they draft Marvin Harrison Jr., fantastic. Okay, Kyler Murray's got his wide receiver 1. Him, Trey McBride, Michael Wilson, James Conner, Kyler Murray, giddy up. But if they don't, there are still paths to building out this roster and canceling out all the question marks and spots that are so key: interior defensive line, offensive line, pass rush, corner. I think with either option, corner is mandatory this offseason. Maybe go get the number 1 corner. No problem dumping a whole bunch of money to that position. A veteran pass rusher. See, this is where Monti Ossenfort and the scouting and the history of that, him and Jonathan Gannon alike, this is what teams do. Look, this is what the Ravens do really well. They find old, quote unquote, old pass rushers. They put them into their system and they have good years. You're not looking for 15 sacks a guy you bring in. But if you can find a pass rush by committee on the cheap, so to speak, that'd be a huge thing this offseason. Because either way, unless they do trade back, they're not going to draft an edge rusher at 4. They're not going to draft an edge rusher in the mid-20s. The Dallas Turner probably won't be there. They're going to need to do that in free agency. And if they can do that, that's one position that, even though the top guys make a whole bunch of cheese, you can find veteran guys. And when I say pass rush by committee, Vance Joseph tried this and failed miserably. I think Nick Rallis, coming as linebackers coach, and Jonathan Gannon with their system, they can find guys that they can put in a room and be like, okay, pass rush, go. Doesn't have to be an alpha or, one of the, a top tier guy and then the rest. But that needs to change. Okay, interior defensive line. Like, Jonathan Gannon now has the Eagles starting to crumble, gives Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen a lot more pedigree. And what the Arizona Cardinals did this year, and I talked about this a lot throughout the season, even though, it was incremental because it microscopic at the time, case by case, but now you see the big picture. They gained a lot of respect this offseason, or this season. National media members, and I'll tell you what, impending free agents saw it too, whether they played against them or watched it on their bye week. It's not a secret that it's different in Arizona now. And that is going to be the greatest recruiting tool that the Cardinals have. I mean, it is Kyler Murray, but a lot of it is what they did last year. And that's fascinating. So those are two options. We're going to do a lot of this. And I thought that was fun. I'm going to bring up two players who used to play with the Cardinals. Should they bring them back with the new look Arizona Cardinals 2.0? Let's discuss. Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals, right after this. This episode of Locked on Cardinals is brought to you by Jace Medical. So I know we come to sports to escape for some of the crazy realities of real life, but can we talk for a minute about preparing? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in a decade. Okay. It comes out, I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than, someone close to me needing medication, not being able to get it. And the Jace case is a 5-pack of different antibiotics to treat a long list of, illnesses, bacterial infections, things like that. Visit jacemedical.com and complete the physician encounter. It'll be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get 20% off your order. So, here, before I pivot to this is going to be really fun. This last segment here, as we go on into the weekend. Something's coming up. I've got my big Rolodex coming out. Bunch of guests coming up. Draft national media members. Some of my favorites that you very well know. It's going to be fun. This is only going to get better. I really am. I'm challenging you to go to Clancy's Corner on Twitter, DM me questions. I want and I've gotten, I get the usual suspects. I get a bunch of the same people messaging me. It's starting to get bigger and bigger. Let's blow this out this offseason. If you have questions, if you want a topic discussed, I might do a whole week. I might do a whole damn week of topics that you give me to talk about, as long as it's football related. Because this is your podcast, okay? And I'm just the one lucky enough to be hosting it. So I got a DM from my boy Kyler Murray, enthusiast at Kyler_IS on Twitter, asking me about a former Arizona Cardinal and if they should bring him back. And it made me think, there is a name that's going to be floating around a lot. And okay. So first, Ben, thank you for this. I've seen this name float around a lot. I've thought it myself. There are two names that I want to discuss: Calais Campbell and Tyrann Mathieu. Now, before you go, there's no way either of them are going to come back. They hate the Cardinals. Well, Michael Bidwell. I get it. But think about it this way. Let's start with the one that has a lesser chance of it happening, and almost 0% chance, and that's Tyrann Mathieu. So I spoke with somebody I know and trust, Ross Jackson from Locked On Saints. I'm like, dude, two questions. How good was Tyrann Mathieu last year? And is there any way that he's going to be a cap casualty? Because there's an out in 2024 in his contract. He goes, he was the best player on the defense. And not because the defense was terrible and he was just the best one. He was just the best one. And the second thing he said was, they're going to build around him. And I said, well, I don't enjoy this conversation anymore. Thanks for nothing, Ross. I said that. And then I gave a smiley face because I love him. But it made me think, what would the Cardinals need to do to entice Tyrann Mathieu to come home? Even though home is New Orleans for him. He went to LSU. The only reason he dropped to the Cardinals in the mid-rounds was because he got busted for smoking pot or something. So it's just so funny how, getting busted for pot isn't funny, but how the times have changed between when he was drafted to now. For those who don't remember, Cardinals snagged him. He played more snaps than any DB in the league one year, towards the ACL one year, but Steve Keim gave him a massive contract, and then asked him to restructure like 10 minutes later, it seemed. He said no. So then Steve Keim cut him. Steve Keim's fault for giving him too much money. Who knows? He could have still been an Arizona Cardinal now. Probably not, but could have been. He gets cut, goes signs a 1 year, I think it was $8 million deal with Houston. If you're playing Immaculate Grid, that's a good one. Tyrann Mathieu, Houston Texans. Just remember that. And then he went to Kansas City, and then now in New Orleans. Let's just take a second and imagine, and they'd find a spot for him. Okay, it's not, he plays safety. You can play slot corner. He's not that old, and he's still Tyrann Mathieu, still the honey badger, man. So just take a second. Imagine Jalen Thompson, Budda Baker, and Tyrann Mathieu in the same safety room with Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis and a whole free agency and draft ahead of you. What that would mean for this organization. Not going to happen. Pivot. Okay. Calais Campbell is the fascinating one. And Ben brought this one up to me. So thank you, Ben. Again, if you want to have a conversation, if you want me to talk about something, DM me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Just do it. I might give out a specific email address to do that. I just know that doesn't always go so well, but I might do that. So Calais Campbell's a fascinating one. Another Steve Keim mistake. He wanted $30 million over 3 years with like 20 plus guaranteed. Steve Keim said, no, too old. He probably didn't say he's too old, but he said, no, enjoy yourself. Then, for those who don't remember, he went immediately to Jacksonville, and they became one of the best defenses in the NFL for fantasy football people. Saxonville, that was the best defense in fantasy football, I believe, that year. And he's like, oh, well, I can still play. And he played there for a couple years, went to Baltimore, and then now in Atlanta. For like the magnitude of what Calais Campbell would bring. And this wouldn't be a money grab. This wouldn't be, anything like a last paycheck because he likes to play golf. This is a different Arizona Cardinals organization than one he was brought up in. You could arguably say it's better. And the Arizona Cardinals, while they need help on the line, having him in the locker room for young guys and vets alike to really be glue. I hate saying glue guy. It's the worst. Just to be a guy, to come back. Fans love him. He's one of the best interviews in football. That would be so big for a team that is still in a very, very fragile state. The ecosystem in that locker room, in State Farm Stadium, it's not that, everybody's, on there walking on eggshells or anything like that. It's just, this is such a pivotal offseason. It is, they could rewrite history with the next two off seasons. And that's not being grandiose or hyperbolic. They could. All you need are a couple good drafts and a couple good free agent classes. And you're right at the top of the NFC West. With the potential for perpetuity and not just, let's bring in a bunch of guys, overpay them, have one good year, win 13 games, and that's it. But little meticulous choices by Monti Ossenfort to add an ensemble around the stars is what this offseason is about, and bringing in stars and hopefully drafting stuff. But a guy like Calais Campbell would be everything. Put it this way. If Calais Campbell decides to come back and sign on a 1-year deal and retire afterwards or whatever, that would show a true full circle for the Arizona Cardinals under the new regime. If Calais Campbell comes back, that's something closer to the personification of what the NFL sees the Arizona Cardinals as now than not. If Calais Campbell comes back and signs with the Arizona Cardinals, it will show a true changing of the guard into Arizona Cardinals 2.0 without Steve Keim, without Cliff Kingsbury, and hopefully without the massive amounts of dysfunction that have permeated and been infused into this organization since its inception. And this is not overblowing a 38, pushing 40-year-old defensive lineman. That's not what that is. Calais Campbell is one of the most respected players in the league, has been for 15 years, over a decade. And if he chooses to spend one of his last remaining playing years with the Arizona Cardinals, the team that drafted him, the team that, exiled, not exiled, but just said, you know what? Like, what was it, 6 years ago? Nope. You're starting to wind down. We're not going to pay you. And then look at what he's done since. That would be massive for this rebuild as they pivot towards, hopefully, a winning trajectory for now and into the future. And remember, first off, Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Without you, there is no me. Thank you. I'll talk to you Monday.